What's up, guys? Fidenzo Hinojosa here. Today we're going to be talking about ISO. Alright guys, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about ISO today. So, just a little history lesson. ISO used to be known as ASA back in the film days, right? ASA is actually your film speed, so 400, 800, 1600, whatever your film speed may be. We also have, in the digital realm of things, we have ISO. That is your sensor's sensitivity to light. So we're talking about, for instance, I'm recording at ISO 100 on this crop sensor camera. This is going to give me the least amount of grain as well as the best image clarity for what I need, right? There are times where I want to crank up the ISO to give it some more grain, maybe what we also call digital noise, to give it some more of that look, right? I don't really know why anybody would want to do that, but some people like that look. It gives it a nice, like, edgy feel. It looks pretty cool. Sometimes you can pull it off. Now, once you crank the ISO up to I guess your average camera would be maybe like 3200 or so. I've definitely gotten usable exposures at 3200 ISO out of this camera. So I think that it's important to realize that once you get up there in those ISO ranges, the higher ISO ranges, you're going to have that look of graininess or that kind of grainy feel, right? But cool thing about that is a lot of these sensors these days are so good that you won't even notice it. And as I always say, if someone is noticing the noise in your images, it's not the noise you need to be worried about. It's the lack of quality in that image, because maybe you're not capturing the right subject matter, maybe your framing and your composition aren't correct. So that's just one of those little rants that I like to go on every now and then. I won't do that today, but so ISO. This one ranges, I mean, they range from 100. I think the A7R Mark II goes up to 25,600 ISO, but there's another camera from Sony that actually goes up to something crazy like 102,000 ISO. That camera can pretty much see in the dark. Say when you're in a concert and you need to have that high ISO range, you definitely want those really good, those really large ISO ranges, so you can capture something at a nice shutter speed, maybe, I don't know, 2000 shutter speed, something along those lines, where the musicians are moving really quickly and you need to capture those images, right? I haven't had an issue yet in all of my concert photography, which is something I've recently gotten into. I absolutely love it. I love marrying the live music with the photos that I love to do, right, as well as videos. So what we're going to talk about today is ISO. What this camera in particular, the Nikon D7100, kind of an older camera nowadays, but it does have a really good ISO range up to 6400 before you get into the high 1 and 2. So we're going to be talking about that, what higher ISOs will actually have happen. I'm going to give you some examples of some images that have been lightly edited, maybe even straight out of the camera, for higher ISO. We're going to take a look at that right now. We're going to take a look at how to change your ISO right now. Alright, so you can see that I have all of this information. You can see up on this LCD screen up here as well, and most of the information you can see in here, although not all at the same time, that I have on this back LCD. On the viewfinder you'll see mostly this right here, this little gauge, and that'll tell you whether your image is going to be correct or not. Here in the middle is going to be exactly middle gray, and here it's going to be overexposed. Here on this side it's going to be underexposed. You can see all that. We'll talk about exposure later. This is part one in the exposure triangle. Okay, so you'll notice all the information here. I'm shooting at 1/60th of a second at ISO 100 at 7.1. Right now I'm shooting just so it can be middle gray, right in the middle of the exposure. Just for video's sake, right? I'm not going to be compensating up or down for this image. Now, we're going to go ahead and take the shot. All right, we have that shot done. Now, the next one we're going to do is we're going to change our ISO up to 800. We're obviously going to have to raise our shutter speed to get it accurate. We're going to shoot it again. The next one we're going to do is going to be at ISO 1600, again raising our shutter speed. Now ISO 3200, raising our shutter speed yet again. And on this one we might even have to raise our aperture. We're going to go to 6400. Here we actually have to raise our aperture. And here we're going to ISO high 2. Cool. All right, so now if we look at all of the images, we're going to go ahead and blow them up. You will see that we have a lot of noise on this image, as opposed to once we start getting really in there, as opposed to the ISO 100 image that we have. All right, folks, now that we've gone over these ISO images, ISO 100, 800, 1600, 3200, all the way up to ISO high 2 on the Nikon D7100, go ahead and go out, experiment a little bit, kind of check it out, see which ISOs you like shooting at. More importantly, when you first get your camera, go out, take the exact same image, preferably in low light. I know these settings aren't exactly the best for low light images because it's in daylight, right? But it's the only time I had to shoot this video. Go ahead and do a test of these ISOs, right? Test your range of ISO on your camera. That way, when it becomes time to shoot, you can feel confident in knowing exactly what ISO you can go up to as far as usable images are concerned. You don't want a lot of images with a lot of noise, right? Although, like I said earlier, it's not necessarily the noise you need to be worried about, it's composition, it's a whole lot of things. But you just have to make sure that that ISO doesn't inhibit your shot and doesn't, in fact, ruin your shot. Just because you don't want that ISO to be cranked up too high. Make sure you do that test and you are able to shoot at certain ISOs. Make sure that you are able to, that you do this test so you can see your usable pictures. So go out, take some photographs, test your ISO, and we'll see you next week.